what exactly has happened to Antoine Semenyo in recent weeks? From the start of the season where he was banging in goals for fun to now currently on a 10-game run without a single goal, it seems like a stark contrast in form and performance from the Ghanaian star. So what exactly has caused this downturn in form, and how exactly can the Bournemouth winger bounce back to scoring and assisting for his side? Let's talk about it. So as we all remember, Antoine Semenyo started this season on an absolute tear. Your man was literally going toe for toe, boot for boot with Erling Haaland for the Golden Boot in the first few weeks of the season. I remember actually seeing him at the top of the goal scoring chart, and I was convinced that Antoine Semenyo was going to end the season at least in and around that conversation of, the Premier League Golden Boot winner. He was literally game in, game out, week in, week out, scoring for fun. I remember the Liverpool game, first game of the season, he got 2 goals. I remember the Fulham match. I remember the Tottenham game as well. I'm not sure if he scored, but he was very influential. And honestly, there were calls and talks for the Premier League Player of the Year as early as August, September, right? Because, this is a player that a lot of people didn't have a lot of high hopes for, especially at the beginning of the season. I remember looking at him. Those of us who watch Semenyo play know how good he is, especially in this Bournemouth side. The way he can score, right? The quality he has on both feet, left foot, right foot, playing primarily off the wings, not playing as the main man in this Bournemouth side, contending with the likes of Justin Kluivert and co in that front line. I remember thinking that, wow, this is the season that Semenyo has really upped his game and has elevated his level. And I think a lot of people reached that general consensus that Semenyo was going to be in and around those goals this season. He was on many people's lists. I remember Premier League Player of the Month on those occasions. September, October, August, he was, nominated. And it's quite a stark drop-off now that it's been how many games? I think 10 games. Some people say 10, some people say 6. I think people are counting also the cup competitions as well. It's been 10 games going since he got a goal or an assist for this Bournemouth side. I know this because a lot of people playing fantasy football, myself included, drafted him in after that first game week, and now it looks like perennially he gets the 2 points and doesn't contribute. Whereas who he was in competition with, Haaland, has gone on, to hit 15 goals. It's actually such a major indictment on the rest of the league and a major, point of evidence to how he was performing, that right now he currently sits after going 2 months without a goal. He's still 4th or 5th in the goal scoring charts on 6 goals. Absolutely bonkers. He's still some ways off Erling Haaland, a 9-goal difference, but at least it shows that in comparison to the rest of the league, he was up there. If he had kept up his goal scoring consistency, he would have been 2nd or 3rd, right? Because 4th or 5th position, I'm not too sure, on 6 goals, having not scored for 2 months is absolutely crazy. And I think we have to start dissecting exactly where this drop-off in form has come from and how he's going to be able to turn it around. A couple of things we have to consider in the Semenyo camp that may or may not help his case. First of all, I know he missed a couple of games, either through injury or through form. I'm not too sure, but I remember him starting some games off the bench, not starting at all, not even being in the lineup. And I know that may have hurt, a certain level of consistency that an attacking player needs to build up in his game. I'm not sure exactly what period it was. I think it was during the October period, and that may have caused, some of these issues. I also know that World Cup qualifying for Ghana was very important for him, and he was a major part in those games. He would come, to the national team, play week in, week out, and then go back to Bournemouth, start over the weekend. More often than not, there were early kickoffs or Saturday kickoffs, and that would, impact the way he was able to deliver for his Bournemouth side in those games. And then you also have to take into account that the way the season started, I remember Kluivert not being in the lineup. I remember other, big players for Bournemouth in those attacking positions were not necessarily starting week in, week out, either through, injury, form, or just rotation by Adnan Iraola. And I think at that point, Semenyo had to step up to be the man, and he was getting the goals for them because there was another reliance on Semenyo to deliver in those positions. Now, those players seem to be back, seem to be getting in and amongst the goals, despite the fact that Bournemouth are not doing as well as they did at the start of the season. There was a reliance on him, and I think, that affected the way he played, the positions he took up in those games. You know, some of the momentum and the moves he was making in games reflected that added responsibility to get in and amongst the goals. Now, if you watch the way he plays, he is trying to provide and set up more than he is scoring. And I think that also feeds into why he's struggling, and because the players around him also seem at the moment to not be delivering for him, right? Speaking of him playing as a provider and an assister, it looks like, you know, him drifting out wide, because primarily he is a winger, and we've seen the goals he scored. Some of them have come from the wings, but in the beginning of the season, primarily he was getting in goals in almost like a top two, a front two. I remember the Liverpool goal. He was coming in off the right hand side, but he was playing more centrally, as opposed to when I watched him in the last few games, even the Chelsea game in particular. I saw him drifting more wide than playing centrally. And so that will obviously affect his ability to get in and amongst the goals, but also, you know, it would affect his output in an assistant sense, because he's trying to put, you know, goals on the plate for the likes of Evan Nelson, for the likes of Kluivert, who have been inconsistent in front of goal, and that has impacted and affected his production outputs. But I think one of the biggest issues, and I don't know if it's actually an issue, but I think purely speculatively, right, is that he's been on the radar of big teams ever since the start of the season. I remember making a video somewhere in the August July period where I was convinced he was going to make a move to one of the top clubs in the London area. For example, at Tottenham Hotspur, I had my eye on. Chelsea, I would have been very happy with, but I knew he was, you know, on the radar of those clubs. And for whatever reason, the move did not materialize, and he signed a new contract at Bournemouth. But those rumors have not gone away. And as we are approaching this January period, those rumors are intensifying ever so greatly. We know Liverpool are now in the market for a new winger. They've been in the market for a while now. I think they're not too satisfied with the Gakpo, Salah, Chiesa contributions. They really wanted somebody to replace Luis Diaz. That hasn't really panned out the way, you know, they would have expected at the start of the season. And so we know that Semenyo was on their radar quite prominently. And that clearly will impact, you know, a player's head and the way they perform. You know, rumors, I've been in those situations, not personally, but as a fan, seeing players that, you know, I'm supporting. Diego Costa is the biggest one that comes to mind. During that title run-in where Chelsea were, you know, chasing the title, he started the season on an absolute tear, and then rumors came in around January, and you saw a drop-off in his performance. Some people have speculated, myself included, that maybe he's trying to drive the price down for Liverpool to be able to secure, you know, his services, because if he's not performing, if he's not hitting the heights that he was hitting at the start of the season, maybe Bournemouth will be more inclined to, you know, to shift him on, because the way he started the season, honestly, this man would have probably gone for like 200, 300 million. Maybe now it's looking more like the 60, 75 million that, you know, we would have expected for a player of Semenyo's quality. Because remember, he's young, he's dynamic, he can play across the front line, and he's also very, you know, clinical in front of goal, vis-a-vis, on the same level, in my opinion, like a Gakpo, not a Salah, obviously, but we know what has happened with Salah in recent days, in recent weeks, and how that could potentially impact what, you know, Liverpool do in the January transfer market. We also know that Salah is going to be missing for the AFCON season in a couple of weeks. He's going to represent Egypt at the African tournament, and so maybe going in for a player like Semenyo, who Ghana is not there, so he won't be unavailable, might be a masterstroke. And so all of that factors in, plays into his head, and you know, that might potentially be the reason why maybe he is not getting in and amongst the goals. But how he gets out of this, honestly, I don't think it will be too difficult. It's really only a matter of time. In the Chelsea game, for instance, I was really impressed watching him. He should have got a goal, marginally offside by Evan Nelson. He may have been in and amongst the goals if Evan Nelson would have kept his line on it. Like, it was actually a shoulder off, and I was quite upset, because I'm like, you've not scored for the last 2 months, and it's against Chelsea that you actually get a goal. Sexy, sensational goal from Semenyo. So honestly, I think it's only a matter of time before he gets back in and amongst the goals. He's actually very clinical. He looks very sharp. He's making the right runs. He's doing the right things. I think against the right backline, because remember that day, the Chelsea backline was quite good. It was quite a strong, solid backline. So honestly, it's only a matter of time whether or not he will be amongst the goals in a sense of like, challenging for the golden boot. I'm not too sure. Remember, he's still only 4th, and so a couple of good games with a couple of braces and he could very well be in and amongst the goals if Haaland's form drops off, because Haaland is on 15 goals. Like, I don't know, I don't think he can keep that scoring run going. Like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he could break the 30 mark easily, but we are halfway through the season. If he actually keeps this run going, he could easily hit 30 plus goals, and that is crazy. But in my opinion, I think Haaland will drop off a little bit. If Semenyo is able to pick up that level of form again, I think he could very well be, one of the challengers. In 4th position, it will only take a few games where he's notching again, because the quality is there. Left foot, right foot, he's strong, he's quick, and there's no doubt about his quality. It's just a matter of time. Wherever he's playing, could be for Liverpool, could be for Bournemouth, but I think he'll be in and amongst the goals once again. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think Semenyo is going to bounce back? How do you think he bounces back, and what do you think the major cause of his drop-off in form is truly? Let me know in the comment section. And guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel Oyibo Sports, turning on that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. It's very important. And Charlie, as always, I'll go see you for streets, guys.